role in the release of the Chibok girls.
Senate President calls for strengthening of parliamentary relations among African countries to fight corruption.
Sultan Saad Abubakar describes religious education as the solution to religious extremism.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the release of some Chibok schoolgirls.
Well, for the night of 14 to 15 April 2014 will remain a sad day and maybe better forgotten for the people of Chibok, a sparsely populated, sleepy rural community of mainly peasant farmers in Borno State, northeast Nigeria.
Well, that's quite right, Blessing. For families that were directly affected by the events of that night, you probably have understated the depth of their feelings. Now, those days you mentioned, April the 9th of the 14th of April 2014, straight on to the early hours of the 15th of April, was when Boko Haram insurgents raided government secondary school Chibok and abducted well over 200 of the teenage girls who had converged to take the final West African school certificate examinations.
Well, for the abductors allegedly came in pretending to be guards who were there for their safety. But as the so-called guards increasingly got harsh in their actions, they raised suspicion. And some of the girls, as they were being taken away in the trucks, jumped off to safety.
Now, others also escaped over the next couple of days as their abductors took them farther away from Chibok. Now, 57 of these girls made it to freedom, leaving 219 in the hands of the abductors. Now, once it was confirmed that the girls had indeed been kidnapped, the global community was stunned and outraged. The focus was thereafter how to get the girls back and how to go about it.
The uncertainty about the fate of the girls persisted, and also hopes raised here and there when the President Muhammadu Buhari, at his inaugural address, said the nation could not claim to have defeated Boko Haram without rescuing the Chibok girls and also other innocent persons held hostage by these insurgents. It quickly promised that the nation will do all it could to actually rescue them alive.
However, it was not until more than a year after that speech made by President Buhari at his inauguration, and then 2 years after the abduction of 2014, that we had some respite. And specifically, on the 17th of May this year, a vigilante group found one of the girls, Amina Ali Nkeki, with a baby, and a certain Mohammed Hayatu, a suspected Boko Haram member who claimed to be Nkeki's husband. Now, it was Amina who reignited fading hopes that the remaining girls were alive, and when she said that they were indeed alive. Now, everyone waited with bated breath until Thursday, the 13th of this month, that's to say October 2016, when the federal government broke the news of the release of 21 of the Chibok schoolgirls. And ever since, emotions have, as it were, gone gaga.
Gaga.
That's a great deal of assignment. So the next question is, what happens after this set of release? There are all kinds of stories about further negotiations going on and plans to release more of the girls who were still in captivity. Exactly. And the last count was said there were 219 of them who were in captivity. Amina Nkeki was found, and then we had 21 who've been released. So you take 22 of 219, that gives you the remainder of the girls who are still in captivity. So that's the issue we'll be taking a look at today on Good Morning Nigeria. On that note, I welcome you to the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Yes, Kingsley, we've said it, and that's the tone for the conversation this morning, aspects of negotiation and also the psychological aspect of this released girls, and as well as the feelings with the family. Well, what happens next as a focus? My name is Blessing Abu. We welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria for today. As usual on the program, we'll get to bring to you a companion segment as well on the program, and that will include a newspaper review, sports, art and entertainment, and not forgetting that we'll start off with the news right now. And here is Larry Bala Hassan. Good morning to you, Larry.
Good morning, Blessing. Good morning and a warm welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed formal appreciation to the international community of the Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, for the role it played in the release of the 21 abducted Chibok girls. Receiving the ICRC president, Mr. Peter Mora, who visited him, the president called for sustenance of its humanitarian services in Nigeria. Meanwhile, former military President General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida has reaffirmed his belief in the professional capability of the Nigerian armed forces and other security agencies in tackling the nation's security challenges. He stated this while reacting to the release of the 21 abducted Chibok schoolgirls made possible by the APC-led Muhammadu Buhari administration.
I will join other Nigerians in rejoicing and very much with the families of these, and pay special tribute to the people who waged the campaign for bring back our girls and the government for this noble achievement.
And still on the rescued Chibok girls, Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development Aisha Jumai Al-Hassan says the federal government will rehabilitate, reintegrate and educate the rescued Chibok schoolgirls. She said this during an interaction with parents of the released Chibok schoolgirls in Abuja.
Our primary concern now is to see that their health is okay. So that is what we are doing now. That is our primary concern. What to do with them, we are still planning. When we finish our plans on what is next, we'll now tell everybody.
I'm very, very happy to hear the news of the release of these girls. I was very, very much overwhelmed by happiness, and I thank the government very much for the efforts they have so far done in securing the release of these girls.
Correspondent Murjanatu Adam Saeed reports that though the parents would not speak to the media, they showed excitement at the federal government's gesture. In another development, the federal government says it has the capacity to provide quality medical care to the released 21 Chibok schoolgirls and those to be released later. The Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, stated this in Abuja while he visited the girls to assess their well-being. He said the girls are in one of the excellent medical facilities in Abuja, and a team of medical doctors, nurses, psychologists, oncologists, and other professionals have been drafted to take care of them.
We are quite confident that monitoring them over the next couple of days, we will gradually win them over, improve their health status, make sure that they are nutritionally sound, and we will get them integrated back into the society.
Senate leader Ali Ndume commended the Ministry of Health for the prompt response in provision of medical support to the girls. Senate President Bukola Saraki has called for the strengthening of parliamentary relations among African countries in fighting corruption. Waziri Zayano reports that the Senate President stated this when he received a delegation of the Ugandan Parliament on public accounts.
I think we need to do that by ensuring that we look at some of the laws that we pass, and those are people-orientated and have value, and also look at our oversight.
And the House of Representatives is in the process of removing civil matters from the jurisdiction of the customary court in the federal capital. Chairman House Committee on FCT Judiciary, Mukhtar Nduze, said this is to ensure a globally accepted judicial system.
We hope to see how we will partner with the judiciary for the betterment of the law reforms in the country, most especially the administration of the criminal justice.
And the Sultan of Sabkwato, Muhammad Saad Abubakar, has described religious education as the only solution to religious extremism, which is the cause of violent tendencies among followers. The Sultan was speaking at the commencement of an African regional conference for religious and traditional leaders on countering and preventing extremism.
I would like us to discuss the various challenges we are facing. Why are we having problems between Shia and Sunni Muslims? Why? Islam is a way of life. We must discuss on all issues that come up from our religious beliefs, because we use religion as a tool to move forward.
As one of the epicenter countries, Nigeria, through UNDP support, has embarked on a program on de-radicalization, countering violent extremism, and migration in northern Nigeria.
Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Mr. Ekpo Nta, has urged Nigerians to see corruption as a crime that should be fought by all. He was speaking at an anti-corruption leadership workshop organized for senior executives of ministries, departments and agencies in Abuja.
The BVN, which you're all familiar with, is a product of prevention. The education sector is a beneficiary of the preventive processes we've been having. Those perpetrating it have taken away your hospitals, they've taken away your good roads, they've taken away good education. That's the way I describe my corruption.
All is now set for the 2016 edition of Africast, scheduled to begin today in Abuja. Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, visited NTA's stand to monitor preparations for coverage and strong presence.
We are very proud of the equipment we have, and we are here to join others in not only showcasing, what we have in terms of television equipment, but also in discovering new equipment, because this Africast is all about equipment manufacturers and content providers. Very happy that our minister is very passionate about NTA. Mr. President is also passionate about NTA.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue with Blessing and Kingsley after the break. Good morning.
You hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter. That might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hey, I just had a shower, but why do I still feel so hot and sweaty?
Let me finish this and I will show you something surprising. Let's take a look. See, heat means sweat. Sweat brings germs. Dettol 100 times cool. It removes germs to leave you feeling clean, fresh, and 100 times cool. Beat the heat and germs with Dettol 100 times cool.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Pump it up while your feet are stomping and the jam is bumping. Look at the crowd is jumping. Pump up the jam and push up your hand. You know, say me fans they plenty like sun. Jump up and dance, make them understand. Say me energy could have never be contraband. Them say me hype and excited because no boy can hype like me. All of my fans them invited.
The NTA ETV National Children's Expo for Scientific, Technological and Artistic Inventions is in its 10th edition. We are set to make history again, live at the NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Improved Technology and Impetus for Mechanized Agriculture, Renewable Energy and Economic Development of the Nation. Date, Sunday, October 23rd to Thursday, October 27, 2016, 9 a.m. each day. As usual, this event is open only to junior categories of ages 6 to 12 years and senior categories of 13 to 18 years in both arts, science or technology. Participants must be in the school system. Are you ready to be a part of the biggest gathering of Nigerian children with creative and innovative ideas? Note, all NTA stations nationwide are implored to complete their preliminary competitions ahead of the Abuja event in October.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, on to our business segment. UNIDO says Nigeria is taking positive steps towards the standardization of quality in line with global best practices. Plus, the Nigerian Stock Exchange opens the week in the red. We have details of these stories with our correspondent, Leah Katung Babatunde.
The United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, says that the National Quality Infrastructure Project, NQRP, will boost the competitiveness of the Nigerian economy in the international market. The project, which was designed to put in place necessary infrastructure and international regulatory framework that will create global acceptance of Nigeria's products and services, is to be launched soon by the federal government. UNIDO representative said Nigeria is stepping up completion of the project and advised government to ban importation of items with same quality and prices with locally produced ones.
There, to have all the decision makers in this country to know that it is important they work for the quality culture of this country. So they need to support that effort. They need to be part of the process. They need to lead that process. We need in Nigeria to raise the quality culture.
When adopted, the National Quality Infrastructure Policy would also ensure the safety and health of consumers who consume the various locally produced products in the country.
Certification bodies popping up here and there. And so to support the enterprises, I think I can say the project has moved forward.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, intervened on Monday with dollar sales to support the naira, which ended at 305.5 per dollar, a range it has closed at for nearly 2 months. Traders said the bank, which has been selling dollars regularly to prop up the currency, sold around $1.5 million towards the close of Monday's trade after the market was open for nearly 4 hours with no deal. The naira was quoted at 455 to the dollar on the black market on Monday, firmer than 460 at its previous session, as international money transfer operators had started to sell dollars to retail currency outlets. This week started bearish as overwhelming supply hit stocks to see the all-share index decline by 0.81%. Let's take a look at closing figures from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That's business news. I'm Leah Katung Babatunde.
Thank you very much, Leah Katung Babatunde. Up next on our lineup is the newspaper review.
Bayo Atoyobi, the Good Morning Nigeria newspaper reviewer, is right here with us as always for today's edition. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Blessing, and good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let's begin our review. We have a variety of stories on the front pages of the papers that we have this morning. We begin with the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian has above its nameplate the headline, National Assembly broke, borrows to pay workers. The lead story says, Isha Sage panel reopens Halliburton case. 3 riders defense judges arrest by DSS, and 6 special crimes court and probe of Jibrin's allegation, and wants NJC to suspend judicial officers accused of graft. Now, also there on the front page of The Guardian, government needs $20 billion to revive economy, says Dangote, and unveils plans to invest in dairy business. Two other headlines there, but we'll get our details in the inside pages. NUC, that's the National Universities Commission, scraps pre-degree and diplomas in varsities. NUC scraps pre-degrees and diplomas in varsities. And EFCC quizzes Obanikoro and Fanika Ode to sue agency over alleged arrest of wife and son. Listen.
Okay, Kingsley. I'll kick off from that of Obanikoro's story. For the nation, leading for the nation this morning, it's a 4.7 billion naira scandal. EFCC detains Obanikoro with a rider to the ex-PDP secretary Aluko to confront ex-defense minister. And this is how the Vanguard is taking a look at that. Just above the masthead, we have Obanikoro arrives from United States, detained by EFCC. You find that story on page 10. And for the judge's story, that's the leading headline for the Vanguard. Stung judges back, sit-over cases against DSS. About 4 riders, Justices Ademola, Dingba resume at court 7 and 11 respectively. EFCC interrogates 2 High Court judges. And corruption in judiciary, worse than crime against humanity. Again. And Osunbajo meets NBA exco behind closed doors. Okay, Bayo.
Well, the saga of the justices is still in the radar as far as the newspapers are concerned. And the 2 of the justices yesterday resumed sitting in their courts. The 2 of the judges, one of them is on administrative bail from the DSS, while the other had his home searched by the DSS and documents taken away. The question is, an accused person is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. One judge is reported by Vanguard to have attended to 12 cases yesterday, with 2 of the cases being against the Department of State Services. Now, this is a moral dilemma for such a judge. The same judge who is on administrative bail from the DSS was presiding over a case that involved the DSS. The 2 cases were stalled, and the DSS, of course, did not make any legal representation. The other judge also had others to deal with, but the dispute regarding the APC governorship aspirant in Ondo State was the case that he had to deal with. Now, meanwhile, reactions have also continued to trail the appropriateness of the arrest of the judges. 2 other Federal High Court judges yesterday reported this time to EFCC for questioning. This was in Lagos yesterday. However, the Presidential Advisory Committee on Corruption says that those criticizing the raid on the residence of judges forget that how critical a role the judiciary is in the society. And Professor Isesagi says a corrupt judge is a critical hazard to humanity, in the sense that if we don't have a judiciary with a moral authority, our democracy is doomed. Daily Trust also reports that the Executive Secretary of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Corruption called on the National Judicial Council to suspend the judges that have been indicted. That is Professor Bolaji Owasanwi. So okay. The judge's case is still on.
All right, let's take the blueprint now, the headlines from the blueprint below the nameplate. Inflation hits all-time high in 11 years. Details of that story on page 33. Inflation hits all-time high in 11 years. And abandoned Nigerian students in Russia threaten the federal government. And Boeing education officers demand money and sex for favors. That's according to the governor. Details on page 9. Jigawa enacts law for compulsory HIV tests. But the lead story of the blueprint says, with a kicker, APC chieftain writes Buhari, reshuffle your cabinet and reconcile with Tinubu. Now, below the photograph on the front page, we have Chibok girls who will further negotiate with Boko Haram if, and that's attributed to President Buhari, and Nigeria winning anti-graft war. That's again according to the U.S. envoy. That's on page 9 in greater detail. Listen.
Okay, looking at other stories, let's return to the nation. I think Bayo touched on the other two judges that quizzed already for receiving bribe. That story you find on page 8. Talks continue on Chibok girls release. That story too is trending on page 8. And moving further down the paper, you'll find, okay, just below the masthead, we have Ondo 2016. Of course, that's the election coming. Akeredolu promises to empower farmers, will support only Christian Muslim tickets, and also Accord candidate unveils development programs. That's stories you find on page 41. Nigeria seeks $15 billion upfront cash oil deal with India. That story starts right there but continues on page 6. Quickly now to the Vanguard. Kingsley, you talked about central bank and foreign exchange just a while ago. Remittance, CBN raises BDC exchange rate to 385 naira to the dollar. That story found on page 22. And I think there was another story about the FCC briefly detaining Fani Kayode's wife in Ekiti Bank. You find that story on page 11. Bayo? Okay,
right,
Kingsley, you have another
yeah,
story?
let's just take these stories from the front page of the Punch newspaper and then go over to Bayo. Punch has as its lead story, Kaduna village herdsmen attack death toll rises to 40. That's on page 20. And Tasa Rider, gunmen killed 2 cutaway cows in Kaduna community. Now, below that, you have a photograph of members of the Lagos, so-called Lagos slum community and fishermen protesting the alleged eviction from their homes. And the protest took place at the governor's office in Alausa, Ikeja yesterday. Now, Plateau considering amnesty for owners of illegal firearms. And IDPs, NEMA frustrating foreign donors, says Undume. And ATM card suspension. Banks reject Naira for visa payment. That's on page 27. And then also above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, 40 billion Naira fraud. EFCC arraigns Nyako, son, and others. Return to your parents, police tell 14-year-old Habiba. And Chibok girls, Buhari gives condition for further talks with Boko Haram. Bye.
Let's start with the human interest story. You recall the Gudogudo village story. Now, that toll is said to have risen to over 40. In fact, the other reports too that the people have resorted to self-help. Yesterday, 14 headsmen were also reported to have been lynched in that area. The Southern Kaduna People's Union, SOKAPU, have raised an alarm that Gudogudo village is totally deserted. Another human interest story relates to the 13-year-old Opolo girl who was allegedly abducted by Yunusa Dahiru. The parents of the girl have raised an alarm, an SOS. They say they were in court yesterday, but the court did not say. However, the parents of Mr. and Mrs. Oruru say that their daughter is not getting the attention required for the nurse as a nursing mother. Mrs. Oruru says that including the baby and them all are confined in one room under the police custody that they live in the officers' mess. The father also has appealed to Delta State government to come to their aid because their daughter is very eager to go back to school and join her classmates in school. Meanwhile, there's this report by Blueprint about inflation figure rising to 17.9. That figure is as of September, and it may not be correct. It was that the figure that was quoted by the National Bureau of Statistics. Actually, there has been some considerable improvement. Central Bank is, for now, to license 20 international transfer operations, IMTOs, to handle an estimated 21 billion annual diaspora dollars that comes into the country. This enlargement is due to the positive impact that the operations have had in stabilizing the exchange rate. Earlier on, you recall, Kingsley read that the exchange rate is now 385 naira to $1. It has skyrocketed 2 weeks ago almost to 500 naira. So the IMO is making some impact. Also, Nigeria has sealed a deal of $15 billion upfront payment from India. India will make upfront payment to buy our crude oil over several years. This agreement requires India to make up upfront payments, and this was struck by the Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachuku.
Yes, the story is right there on the front page of the Nation.
Yes, it's a 3-day visit to India. In fact, a memorandum of understanding is required to be sent to that in that regard.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, I mean, the latest figures from the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that headline inflation is 17.9. That's for normally
That's
the
for
figures are
September
given.
figure.
Yes.
Quarterly.
Yes. No, usually on a month-to-month basis,
Okay.
we get the figures, and the figures are given in arrears. So, but it's the rate. The rate of inflation, of course, is decelerating. I mean, we had some drastic climb earlier in the year, as well as part of the middle part of the year. But it seems to have slowed down, but the figure is still climbing, almost 18%.
Yes, I think
we
2
had
days
that story
ago, yesterday it was going about 18%.
Yeah, that's 17.9.
17.9.
It climbed up from about 17.6 the last time they released the figures, and that was for the month of August. All right, that's the much we can take. Baya Tobi, we'd like to thank you for being with us today. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, before we kick off with our principal item for discussion, which is on the release of 21 of the Chibok schoolgirls who were abducted on the 14th of April 2014, we shall be touching on anti-corruption.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
It's here again. It's the 11th Biennial Conference of Africa Broadcasters, TAG Africast, organized by the National Broadcasting Commission. In Nigeria, we say better soup na money kill 'em. In Africast, we know this. That's why the theme of Africast 2016 is Digital Terrestrial Broadcasting, the imperative of financing quality content. With over 60 participating countries, over 2,000 participants, local and foreign exhibitors, Africast is the most vibrant market for broadcasters, policymakers, content producers, equipment manufacturers, exhibitions, panel discussions, and masterclasses. Date from October the 18th to 20th, 2016. Abuja Sheraton Hotel and Towers host Africa's 2016. Time 9 a.m. daily. See you there. Africast. Investment, content, technology.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Huh? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. Now, one subject matter that is unlikely to go away anytime soon is the crackdown on judges over alleged corruption. The DSS took that step penultimate weekend, and last week we also took on the subject matter. Today, of course, we are continuing with it for a brief discussion before we move on to another subject matter. So joining us now for this conversation this morning is Professor Etanibi Alemika. He's a professor of criminology at the University of Jos, and is also a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. Professor Alemika, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria after such a long while.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good morning.
Okay.
We're watching from the side.
That's right. Yeah, let's. I mean, the trigger for all of this is the story. We still have some of the stories in the papers today. You had the stories yesterday, and over the weekend, You heard the story. That's about the crackdown on judges, on some judges over alleged corruption. What's your take on this? It's phenomenal, it's unique, it's unusual.
I regard it as a tragedy on different levels. First, that Nigeria has become so infested with corruption that we can even have suspicion that judges are corrupt. I think it's a tragedy. It's you know, if it gets to a point where you think a church or a mosque has become a brothel, I think that's the kind of feeling in many of us. So it tells us how endemic corruption is in Nigeria, that even a suspicion of it amongst people who are regarded as only a little less than God, because they actually have a power of life and death given to them by the state and constitution. So I think it's a tragedy that we're discussing, that it happens at all. And when we're discussing it, I think we need to be sober, because on all fronts, we're also being watched by other countries. I mean, in the past, if you and I, they just say Nigerians are corrupt. But when it comes to the level where you are saying Nigerian judges are corrupt, it's like there is no hope. Until a decade or two ago, many people will argue that our highest level court, the Supreme Court, and to a large extent this appeal court, were probably as good as any court in any part of the world. Even under the military, you could not predict the kind of judgment that they will make, very bold judgments. So for us, if you're talking of recession of morality, I think that the whole episode itself is one episode of, you know, monumental recession of morality and civility across our society.
All right, Professor Alemika, now for those who say that there are fears that the entire judiciary, definitely as an institution now, is being threatened by this war, where do we place this fear?
Yeah, I think we need to distinguish between two levels: individual behavior and institutions. I think this episode is not about the judiciary. Of course, these people operate within the judicial system, and I think we need to understand that very carefully. There are people within judiciary, just like any other institutions, whether universities, which are said to be infested with sexual harassment, with all kinds of corruption, whether you talk of police, whether you talk of courts, who are very decent, who are very patriotic. So let's not take the institution. So it will not be proper to say the judiciary in Nigeria is the one that is under attack. I think it's individuals who are corrupt, who find haven within judiciary, that are destroying that institution. And picking out those kind of people does not mean that there is an attack on judiciary. But because I think once we emotionally say it's the judiciary, we are preventing ourselves from addressing, we are providing haven for evil people dwelling with those kind of haven.
Well, a corollary question to ask is, the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption apprehend the sense of and magnitude of corruption alleged or otherwise in the judiciary?
Well, we are not an investigative agency, and we are advisory to the president in his efforts to fight corruption in Nigeria. Of course, there are allegations. I mean, we're all Nigerians. You hear this in the press. They happen more around events when there are, and I think two events, and they're usually very close to each other. Election, and then immediately a new regime comes in, and the previous government or governance were being tried. You hear all these allegations around that as an attempt, where judgments are bought, as different judgments are written, the highest bidder get what it is. So around election and around corruption cases, and these are high-stake cases. So most of these corruption cases tend to hang around these two episodes. That is not to say there are no small ones which people eat by the side, but I think the ones that bring in millions, billions are around those two. And I think that's why the argument that it is not an internal security problem, I think, does not hold. If your means of constituting a government is destroyed, the hope in the democratic society is destroyed. So it's another form of coup against the system when you keep giving judgment that destroy democratic tenets. So for me, I think for our side, we do analysis. we were concerned not so much by, I mean, those allegations on the ground, but the slow pace of movement of cases of corruption. And we had thought that as a committee and as our principal, we are not interested in anybody getting convicted. What we are interested in is that if there's a case against you, let it rapidly be resolved. I don't think anybody should be happy living with an allegation hanging on his head, except he himself, he feels that he's guilty. And that's why it's the irony for us from other angle. If you are accused of a crime or even of any wrong, you want to declare your innocent. When people now go to get injunction that they should not be declared innocent, the case should not end. That is the concern of our committee. It signals something that, look, don't even investigate me. I don't want my innocence declared. I want perpetual injunction. It stands the logic on its head. That is the area we are concerned. We just want an efficient resolution of cases. We are not concerned about outcome. When I say we are not concerned about outcome, it is not that once you are accused, you are guilty and therefore you must be jailed. Rather, let people, a decent court, impartial court, incorruptible court, decide the matter according to the law. If you are found not guilty, so let it be, let your name be cleared, but as quickly as possible so that we can move on to something else.
All right, Professor Alemike, let's take a look at one other area to that have been a kind of controversy. The powers for the DSS to do the crackdown, some other bodies that have been involved in the fight against corruption. Looking at the existing structures, what do we need to do to actually help? You just talked about it's not just the institution of the judiciary now, because of course there could be individuals, but what exactly do we need to do differently, at least to support this fight against corruption to a logical state, if we may use that word?
Yeah, bless you. The example I will give is if we're neighbors, we have a wall, and you don't mind your wall, and whatever you kept in your compound became a hazard to me, I will be tempted to jump across your wall, across your compound to look at what is in there. I'm afraid probably that has happened in this case. If we follow that argument, ideally, secret agencies, which DSS is, are we call them, they are not agencies that are visible. They are not seen. And in an ideal situation, they investigate, they have intelligence, they pass it to what we call operational agencies like the Nigeria Police, EFCC, and the rest of them. But because of our institutional weaknesses, you find there are arguments across these agencies that if you give information to the next uses it in a way that compromises the integrity of the information and even the source of the information. Sure. And you find a secret agency like DSS become an acting agency. Operationally, it's not intended. So we do have a problem in that respect. What we should be doing is to rethink that area very seriously, of overlapping of intelligence and acting agency. Where should the boundary stop? But this is not something that started with these corruption cases. I'm sure in the last 5 years, you have seen DSS officials on the highway with probably the name written on, boldly in black T-shirt, and then with weapons that usually you will not associate with them. So I think there is a problem in that area, but that is evidence of institutional weakness. You either don't allow them to do that and the society collapses, or you consider this an aberration that is supported by doctrine of necessity, as we've always had it, and then, of course, immediately try to see how to deal with that matter. So that's my own position on that.
Well, Professor Alemike, while we are still dealing with institutional responsibility in tackling corruption, say, in the judiciary, how can the country, as it were, and this will involve stakeholders and various institutions, focus on the fight against corruption while at the same time resolving the apparent tension that we are seeing already amongst and between institutions? The National Judicial Council, for instance, is traveling, as it were, on a different tack from that of the DSS, and there are constitutional responsibilities imposed on the National Judicial Council. Are we at some point likely to have a reconciliation so that the principal target of dealing with corruption is not lost sight of?
Yes, I think the question you are raising is fight against corruption and the controversy about the means of corruption. Again, because judges, judiciary, are special in a way, the NJC finds provision in the Constitution. But in terms of power, from NTA Senior Staff Disciplinary Committee, University Senior Staff Disciplinary Committee. So if as a lecturer of a university, I'm involved in robbery, yes. The Staff Disciplinary Committee cannot be the ultimate decider of my fate. That has become a criminal accusation, which of course become a criminal process, which you cannot deal with in administrative process. So NJC is an administrative body that can dispose administratively. So it's basically a senior staff disciplinary committee for judges. But because of the nature of judiciary, it finds itself in constitution. So that means it's important. But let us not, invest it unduly with power that it does not have to the exclusion of criminal process.
Well, the other point is, again, we raised this when we first discussed this subject matter. The DSS, as you said, is a secret service. Does it have institutional experience with prosecution? If the DSS is now taking the lead in raiding judges over alleged cases of corruption, who will be the effective prosecuting agency?
Okay. It's not as complicated as it seems. Okay. The prosecuting authority for the Federation of Nigeria is the Attorney General of the Federation. For the state is the Attorney General of a state. So whether it is by DSS, by the Nigeria Police, by the AFCC, the prosecuting authority is the Attorney General. That's why the section of the Constitution says that the Attorney General can apply for discontinuation of any criminal matter before judgment. So it has a constitutional power. So there is nothing stopping the Attorney General calling the DSS DG and said, oh, I heard you did this, there are 5 cases, can I have the files? And when he finds the files, he brings up about 5, 10 prosecutors and say, go ahead and work with these investigators, look at the particulars of the cases, determine whether there is sufficient evidence for prosecution, and if there is, please continue. So it's not as complicated as it is if we're working as a nation. If we're working as a nation and we have the prosecution authority, what does happen sometimes is the delegated powers, because these prosecution powers are, in a sense, delegated to these various agencies, either by law, but that does not, of course, surpass the constitutional provision. It is in that competition that we tend to have problems. But once we understand the fact that the Attorney General is the coordinator of all prosecution of the state, it does not create that problem. So I will expect, for example, where the DSS, if they are acting in the interest of the nation, where they have deficiency, they can call the police with more experience, with long institutional history of prosecution to say, what can you do to help us here? They can call the FCC. They can call people in the office of the Attorney General.
Professor Lemike, still on with the powers for the DSS and whoever that is going to come bring search warrants or bring in form of arrest. People of opinion that the search warrants were they actually properly obtained before they actually raided these judges' houses. At the point that it was even trying to, one of the judges actually said, can I see? And it wasn't visible. Well, there are different stories, but the power of arrest and the search warrants, how should, and obtaining them, how proper were this one's done?
Okay, let me say, I don't want to work with the speculations in the, exactly. And what people say, what they don't say. Let me say what I think. There is what we call police powers. It is not only the Nigeria police personnel that have police powers. Police power simply means an agency or an officer that is power to stop you, to search you, to arrest you, or probably to detain you. That's all the police powers.
There is also
yes, so it's just that you don't, in your own case, it simply stop at apprehension.
That's right.
Okay. So
if
this power too is vested.
Yes, so if you detain, you are in trouble. Right. There are all consequences that follow. So the full range of police power is basically even from stop and search right through to detention. So all EFCC, ICPC, DSS, they all have police powers in that sense. In terms of arrest, there is what we call arrest with warrant and arrest without warrant. Again, the criminal procedure, the statute defining specific behavior as crime will also determine whether you can arrest with or without warrant. In terms of who can issue warrant, it's a very simple thing. If you go to obtain a justice of the peace status, you can actually permit a warrant to be issued for at certain levels. Once it is not a capital offense or the rest of it. So a magistrate is alleged. What we are talking now is what is in the press. I know I think Sahara had already published some of those ones, but we can't say what is the authenticity. But what is available is, in fact, there were warrants issued by a magistrate court, and a magistrate court is valid issuer of warrant of arrest.
All right, Professor Olamide, just before we let you go, the point that I would like you to touch on, because we have some commentators have observed this over some time now. Are we now corruption, say, in the judiciary? And can the current or present crackdown transcend the stage of media trial as we have seen? In other words, can there be justice meted out immediately, whether conviction or freedom?
Kingsley, there was a late professor, I'm sure you know him, our late professor Claude Ake.
That's right.
Who once said that the problem with Nigeria is that the people vested with power to solve it are the problem. And I think that's the crisis of the nation. They deal with this matter legally, when indeed the court may be an obstacle to doing it. And you know, in Nigeria, we've come this slogan of the separation of powers as if these are divided government with barricade against each other. They are just functional differences. They are just functional differences. The legislature is to make law, the executive is to enforce it, judiciary is to interpret it. The only time that the executive erodes the power of the legislature is when it starts making law. The time it erodes the power of judiciary is when it starts interpreting law, and vice versa. So it is not when it is enforcing, is carrying out its function within your institution that is eroding your power. Yeah. So I think what you need to take away from that is we're in a fix. And my position is law is only one way in which you achieve order in society. In our present situation, both law and all other mechanisms by which you achieve order in society have broken down. Some of them are family, which is the primary one. Most families are broken down because of the structure of the society, the kinds of erosion of values that I've mentioned. Then religion. Religion is one of the greatest promoters of corruption today because they become so materialistic in the things that they advocate. And then, of course, judicial, backed by the coercive powers of the state, that is broken down. So we're really in a fix. I would think what we need to do is not to focus on law alone and begin to look at the totality of the means of social control, the family, and then, of course, the value-creating and sustaining institution outside of the state, and then see how we can revamp these ones in order to have a comprehensive one and build a new generation of Nigerians that, of course, but we need deterrence. We need deterrence. I always say that Nigeria is in trouble because it neither fear God nor fear law. In decent countries, they fear law, even though they don't fear God.
All right, Professor Etanibi Alemika, Professor of Criminology at the University of Jos and a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, would like to thank you for being part of our program this morning.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, that does it for that discussion segment. Now we are moving on to our second item today, which is on the release of 21 Chibok schoolgirls. And to lay the foundation for that discussion, we have this background put together by Ngozi Chude.
On the 14th of April 2014, Nigerians woke up to the stark reality of the adoption of some schoolgirls from the government's girls' secondary school in Chibok, Borno State. Initially, the number was not ascertained. However, investigation revealed later that the actual number of girls taken away during the attack was 276, all aged between 16 to 18 years and in their final year in secondary school. Reports later indicated that 53 of the girls had escaped as of May 2nd, leaving 234 girls in the hands of their captors, Boko Haram, in the area of Sambisa Forest. What followed was anguish on the part of the parents and anxiety on the part of the government, who were unsure of what actually transpired. In the wake of the unpleasant situation, several allegations all pointing to the negligence of the school authorities and the military's failure to act on intelligence prior to the attack. But uppermost on the minds of government and Nigerians after it was clear what had happened was locating and rescuing the girls. Efforts intensified in this direction, but all hope was almost dashed when a video emerged on May 5, 2014, when Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau claimed responsibility for the kidnapping, saying he had been instructed by Allah to sell the girls or marry them off. On May 17, 2016, Amina Ali Keke, one of the girls, was found along with her baby, and Muhammad Ayatu, a suspected Boko Haram militant who claimed to be her husband, by the Vigilante Civilian Joint Task Force Group. This was a welcome development, but for the remaining girls, no one was sure of their fate, because in August 2016, Boko Haram released a video of what appeared to be about 50 Chibok girls, with some of them holding babies, and an armed, masked spokesperson who demanded the release of jailed fighters in exchange for the girls' freedom. In the video, a spokesman claimed that some of the Chibok girls had been killed by Nigerian airstrikes and 40 married off. However, a few days ago, Nigerians received cheering news: the release of 21 girls by Boko Haram following negotiations between the group and the Nigerian government, brokered by the Swiss government. Nigerians erupted with joy, and at the Thanksgiving service in Abuja, where the girls had been relocated to from their place, the girls were reunited with their parents. Though the atmosphere was charged with excitement, it was with mixed feelings, as some were still expecting the return of their loved ones, still with the insurgents. 2 years and 6 months after these girls were taken captive, from schoolgirls, they have literally been turned into women by no choice of theirs. There are remaining 197 girls, and negotiations are said to be in progress for the release of more girls. What is now attracting attention is what happens to the girls after they gain their freedom. How can the girls be rehabilitated so that the harrowing experience will not have a permanent dent on their social and psychological well-being? What should be the way forward in this regard, and what form should this take? This is what the discussion will center on today's Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Ngozi Chude, for that background. As a prompt for our conversation, the second part of our conversation this morning, taking a look at the Chibok girls. Well, here in Abuja studio as well as other locations in the country. We'll start off with that of Abuja. A member of the House of Representatives, whose constituency covers the Chibok area, is Honorable Asabi Velita Bashir. It's our pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Also joining us here in Abuja studio is the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Dr. Garba Abari. Good to have you again in the studio. Okay, Kingston, we have other guests.
All right, yes, we have another guest with us here in Abuja studios. He's Mr. Yaga Yarakawa is chairman of Chibok local government area. Mr. Chairman, our pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and then from our Kaduna studios, we are being joined at this time by the head of, but from Makodi, actually not Kaduna, from our Makurdi Network Studios. We have been joined at this time by the head of Department of the Clinical Psychology, Federal Medical Center, also in Makurdi, which is the capital of Benue State, Dr. Perpetua Chia. Dr. Chia, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted that you are here with us. But let's begin this from the home front. And that's where we're going to Mr. Yara of Chibok local government area. Could you describe for our viewers the mood in Chibok right now?
In fact, Chibok local government is one of the local governments in Nigeria which is very distinct from any other local government because we are the only local government that speaks one particular language, that is Chibok language. The mood in Chibok as at now for the release of these abducted girls is very high. People are jubilating because for over 2.5 years, the situation was very terrible. Everybody seems to be scared of moving freely. But after the release of these girls, things started taking shape. Especially the masses who used to fear of attack at all moments have get sense of relief and they are jubilating. Even if when I go home, I'm going to organize another party for the joyful release of these daughters.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, Chibok local government. Of course, another representative of the area is glad because I'm sure over the 2.5 years, there were concerns for you as a representative as well as a mother and a parent. Well, this area is, or it has gained global recognition on account of this incident. What exactly is the mood right now for you and for other who are representatives from that area? How did you receive this news?
Yeah, thank you very much. Honestly, we are very happy with this development, and on behalf of all the other parliamentarians in this country, we want to commend our leader, the president of this country, Muhammadu Buhari, for his commitment and sincerity in the rescue of these girls. Before this time, like the chairman said, there was so much tension in the country and in fact globally. People were doubting whether these girls are still alive. There was no hope at all for their return because people were wondering how such a large number of girls or human beings will be carted away and no information at all of their whereabouts. But we are happy today that there's light at the end of the tunnel by the return of these 21 girls, and we are happy about it. And we press on the federal government to continue the negotiation so that the other girls will be returned back home safely.
Okay, now still with you. Taking a look at least the feelings, the happiness for the parents whose children or daughters have been reunited with them. But of course, there are whose daughters are yet to be found. What are you telling them?
Yeah, the parents of these returnees are very, very happy. You can see the mood that was captured during the reunion 2 days back. They are really happy. In fact, the agony they went through, it is better imagined. Because out of what the agony, we lost so many parents. About 22 parents of these adopted girls have died out of the agony of the missing girls. So you can see the parents are very happy to unite with their girls. And like they said, they've always said, no matter their condition, they want to see their girls. They are very happy to see their girls, and we pray that others who are in captivity will be returned.
Okay, well, Honorable Velita Bashir, thanks a lot. As I said, we have other guests, but just before we Chibok local government area, following your frequent interaction with Chibok residents, did they expect that this would happen, or was there a sense of hopelessness, considering all kinds of negative stories that had been swirling about the Chibok girls.
Actually, when all these things happened, we didn't lose hope because the previous administration still in force. We would have not have hope because since the beginning of this incident on 15th April, when these girls were abducted on 14th, we were in Chibok as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. When these girls are being taken in trucks, we gave them escorts to follow them. When these escorts reached a certain stage in Kulali, one village, these soldiers, because they don't have enough firepower to match these people, so they returned. And then when this came up, we were very much hopeful that at the end of the tunnel, there must be a success because we have got a dynamic and dedicated president with his lieutenants, and the intervention of the international community has added value to the search for these girls. Now, as the president has promised that he will establish a way that a negotiation will be conducted, this negotiation has come to stay and it is fruitful. We are sure the rest of these girls will also be released as the president promised and as the international community are intervening. So in fact, from the day one that President Mohamed Buhari came to power, we are very much hopeful, even earlier than this, but it is not too late. We are still grateful for him, and we will continue to be grateful and to support him in all what he is doing because we know he can do it, and he has done it, and he will do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Chibok local government. We'll come back to you in the course of the discussion as well. What we told us earlier, we have other guests across, and before we pose the next question to the DG NOA here, we would like to introduce another guest that have joined us from our Lagos studio. He's the Head Security Resources and Solutions Consult lead and also member in Interministerial Committee on the Planned handing over of areas liberated from Boko Haram by the armed forces to constituted civil authority. We're introducing Captain Aliu Umar Babangida Itari. It's our pleasure to have you on the program again, Captain Aliu.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, yes, you were on one of the editions of this program, taking a look at Chibok and the Boko Haram insurgency generally, not too long. Now, looking at the areas that we've gotten today, aspects of negotiation and also securing the release of those 21 girls where they were picked. Did we actually see this coming based on what we have discussed on the program?
Well, it's encouraging. It did not come as a surprise. It came rather as a step in the right direction. It was expected, given the increased tempo of activity that was actually invested in degrading the effects of the insurgents in the northeast. I was privileged to be part of that activity and was privileged to be physically in Maiduguri, where I met Bolanis, Lawanis. I met deposed emirs who have now been relocated back to their domains. The 21 girls being released is encouraging, and I'm looking forward with confidence to seeing more of them come home. However, their release opens the next chapter in this fight against terrorism. Their release will come with concerns. Their release will initiate a process that has to be rehabilitate them properly.
All right. Well, Captain Aliu, of course, we'll return to you to deal with the of what is unfolding. We have 22 of the 219 already freed from captivity. But let's get now the views of Dr. Garba Abari, who is Director General of the National Orientation Agency. What does this mean for us? Because we've been in the news globally on account of Chibok.
Well, thank you very much. As a nation, I think what has happened the last 3-4 days has been very encouraging about our perseverance as a people, and also and the role of the state and of course of the government. It's a very unfortunate situation which at the point when hope seemed to have been lost, all of a sudden there is a resurgence of a new hope. And this speaks volume about the way we Nigerians actually react to certain situations, that afflict our country. There was despondency. Everybody thought perhaps our girls are gone for good. People started thinking whether all the advocacy roles of various national and international organizations would all come to naught. Government had consistently maintained that it had been talking and it had been employing all manner of approaches to secure this the Chibok girls. And of course, what we had seen is a culmination and a fulfillment of what government had been promising all through. So by the time it came and it was announced, you could see the jubilation nationwide. And so it tells us a lot that we as a people also share common humanity. From those who initially doubted that whether the girls were abducted in the first place or not, to those who are actually from day one had believed that this girl had been taken away. That was like a common agreement. We were all one as Nigerians. That really, it was a day remarkable. It was a joyful day. Government had done it. It is to do it again. And of course, as recently as yesterday, you had seen what the president was saying. That those who had been mediating should continue with their mediatory role, and the government on its part will do all that it could in order to secure the release of the remaining 197 girls. And of course, everybody from across the divide, religious, traditional, cultural, kudos to the government and giving encouragement that we should continue, that there is no effort, no matter how big, that should be spared in order to secure the release of the remaining 197. To a very large extent, we have spoken very well about ourselves as a people. We have spoken very well about ourselves as a nation. And of course, what has now happened is that the international community, will also step up and scale up also their engagement with the Nigerian state. I think so far, so good.
All right.
All right. Well, that's right, Dr. Abari. Thank you very much. Let's go over now to Makodi, where we earlier introduced the head of clinical psychology at the Federal Medical Center in Makodi, Dr. Perpetua Chia. Dr. Chia, well, we have seen the girls who were released by Boko Haram, 22 of them. We have also seen their parents, guardians, and other associates in jubilant mood. But obviously, these are persons who are wounded psychologically. So how would you describe their state now, and what would you suggest as the next steps going forward? Dr. Chia, it appears you didn't hear my question. Let me repeat it. I'm saying that we have seen the 22 schoolgirls who've been released by Boko Haram. We've also seen their parents, guardians, and well-wishers all in a jubilant mood. But all of that, again, is also against the background that these are persons who have been psychologically hurt. So, from your perspective, how should we begin to deal with these persons going forward, particularly the 22 girls who've just been freed? Well, unfortunately, I understand that she cannot hear us at this time. I'm sure our engineers will try to clear up the audio snag. Let's go very quickly to our Lagos Network Center. Captain Aliu again. Captain Aliu, let's, before we come to the psychological aspect, because obviously when we discuss these matters, you always take a broad spectrum perspective on the issues. The release of the 22 girls is work in progress because we still have some 197 who have not been accounted for on the basis that 219 were abducted on the 14th of April 2014. Your opinion should be avoided at this time in order not to jeopardize the work in progress with regard to the negotiations with the captors. Sorry, with the captors.
First and foremost, we must understand something. Our responses, our attitude to the release of 21 girls can make or mar the progress of the process. Unfortunately, the process is not open to media scrutiny because of its dicey nature and also because of the nature of the adversary or the captors. We have heard questions coming in concerning what was done and what was not done for these girls to be released. We have had it officially stated from government quarters that it was not, there was no negotiations, there was no exchange of anything. It was not a swap. And we've also had people say, no, some things changed hands. It's not possible for, terrorists to release people like that. What I want the general public to understand is, sometime in, I think 17th October 2014, serving defense chief actually announced a ceasefire. And that ceasefire was botched, or rather was disputed. It was negated by the adversary, the insurgents, Boko Haram. In this case, we have not had any such issues. What we have had to date is information, if I'm not wrong, from the information minister to the effect that these girls were released and it was not a swap. There are concerns that have reached me. People are saying to the effect that even soldiers are raising concerns about persons who were released in exchange for the girls or monies that were exchanged for the girls. Well, if such things exist and the so concerned persons have facts, I think the fairest thing they can do to those girls and us is to advance the facts and not just leave it to persons said or persons were. No speculations. If there is nothing we have at all in common about the situation now, is our daughters, 21 of them, and the others who are still in captivity. And I also draw confidence in what the government has said, that having profiled Boko Haram and known them to a certain degree from my observations, if there were any issues that did not go down well with them or that was misconstrued or misstated, it's within their ego culture to come out and tell the world that was a lie. That will score them points in their own consciousness or in their own awareness of what they want to achieve. So basically, we need to actually show some kind of faith, some kind of belief in the process that is on ground. It's meant to be a confidence building process. Let's put what we can into it so we can spike the confidence levels rather than wane them away. It's a window of opportunity we cannot but take.
All right, Captain Aliu Umar, thank you very much. We'll still come back to you. Okay, back to Russia in Abuja. Dr. Abari, of course, he just raised some concerns, which those are comments even the federal government is actually calling out for Nigerians to exercise some kind of restraints in the kind of comments that were given or pouring out in the public space, especially that could stall aspect of further negotiation in getting the other girls and those in captivity. What kind of comments should be avoided at this time, and what kind of confidence is the government seeking from the people to actually help this fight against insurgency?
Well, thank you very much. I think at this point in time, any kind of comment that will jeopardize further release of the remaining 197 Chibok girls should be avoided. Like I said initially, that we as a people have brought a lot of empathy the day we heard about the release of the 21 girls. And this empathy actually speaks volumes, like I said, about our common humanity. But at a time when there should be a national consensus on how to move beyond where we are today, and give the government all the cooperation and support towards getting the release of the remaining girls. This is the time when we least should expect information that is coming from quarters capable of jeopardizing or putting or stalling the process. And like Captain Aliu has said, the Boko Haram having been profiled, it's usually not in their ways of doing things. When an information is being churned out, and the information to fit into their way of doing things, they usually come out outrightly to say no. This is not what we have done. This is not what it is. Or this is what the true situation is. Today, government has come out to say these girls had been released. The process did not involve a swap. Whether and if indeed there was a swap, Boko Haram, knowing them and knowing the way they do operate, they would have come out clearly to refute. They would have said no, there was a swap or there was no swap. That's one. Two, I think the eventual concern or ultimate concern is actually the release of the remaining girls, and by extension also the release of all other Nigerians out there who are a larger number than the Chibok girls that we have been talking about. The Chibok girls have been quite symbolic in the struggle. They are quite symbolic in the struggle. They have brought international consciousness and attention on the terrible experiences that we in the Northeast actually have suffered in the hands of Boko Haram, and actually do not really know that there are so hundreds and thousands of people still out there that have yet not been that are yet to be liberated or accessed. So I think what we really need really national unanimity in our conduct, in our speeches, in what we say, so that government will remain consistent and focused in what it is doing in order to secure the release of the remaining 197 girls, and of course large chunk of other Nigerians that are still being held by the insurgents.
All right, Dr. Barry, thank you very much. Now, we understand that the lines have been cleared now to Makurdi Studios, you saw earlier, and well, she just popped up again on the right side of your screen, Dr. Perpetua Chair. Dr. Chair, very briefly, let me state my question briefly so that in case you do not hear me, we can find other ways of passing the question across to you. What, in your opinion, are the immediate and long-term psychological challenges that we have to grapple with regard to the 22 girls who've just been released by Boko Haram?
Okay. The psychological trauma that these girls are going through is really, it's something that we need to, as clinical psychologists, we don't just assume the extent. We need to have a comprehensive assessment of these girls, of their psychological state. And during this assessment, we can know the extent, the level, because there are ranges or severity of psychological trauma. And this psychological trauma is in the form of post-traumatic stress disorder. You have the post-traumatic stress disorder, which is characterized by poor concentration. You have nightmares of what they went through, and because of that, they have inability. They might be afraid or unwilling to sleep. And then they also have fear. There is fear, there is anxiety, and even symptoms of depression. And in addition to this, you discover that the dignity of these girls has been destroyed. That also affects their self-esteem and their self-confidence, which really need to be worked on for them to be able to go back into society and function properly. And how can these be addressed or be managed? It can only be managed by the help of professional mental health practitioners. It can't be done just by lay people. And I expected that we should have on ground health professionals, such as medical doctors who will assess them, assess their medical condition, because they have been away for 2.5 years and with poor medical facility, with poor or even the facilities. So they need to be assessed medically and also psychologically. You have psychiatrists on ground and you have social workers. All these are a team that are supposed to come together and handle the psychological trauma of these girls. So it's not so, though we have, it is very good that we are very happy that they have been released. But being released is not just to send them away or push them away to their communities. They need to be taken care of medically, then assessed psychologically, and also then their psychological needs, because these girls, they have, in as much as they have psychological trauma from this event, they have their various psychological needs, expectations, and views. So these views and these expectations, they need to be they need to be taken care of. So each of these girls need to be assessed psychologically. And then from there, we now know their needs, their individual needs, and then the psychological treatment goes on. The psychological treatment is, it depends on the severity. You have the counseling, then you have also some specialized psychological therapeutic techniques that are being used to handle these conditions that the girls are going through. So I expect that the federal government will put a team of credible mental health professionals who will go there and address these psychological needs of the girls.
Dr. Perpetual Chair, joining us from our Makodi Network Center. Thank you very much. We'll be back to take on other areas as it regards the psychology and the psyche of these individuals, as well as those in their communities, because one thing is for us to have people being stigmatized on account of whatever they've gone through. Okay, while we're on the discussion, of course, on other Nigerians watching, I've actually taking on this aspect of our Twitter handle, and they have joined us in the conversation. So we're going to read the tweets, and also would like to take a look at what other areas, especially in terms of security, for those who could have been radicalized in the course of their being held hostage. Okay, we'll start off with that of Aziz Tajuddin. It says, thanks to President Muhammadu Buhari, but something is not clear. Boko Haram leaders have not issued any official statement on the girls' release. This is unusual.
And Mike Anyankwo tweets, the federal government must ensure that remaining Chibok girls are back. But we also commend our security personnel for those released already.
And from Sani Michael Omakoji, it says, those girls should be given future, not to end up in a kitchen or roadside hawkers or as roadside hawkers. They should be properly catered for. And for those NGOs who have been clamoring for bring back our girls, they should also come out to help in the rehabilitation bid.
All right, Francis Jethro, thank God for the release, but my advice is that the federal government should keep its promise of rehabilitation.
And from Ayuba, Joseph Ogai says the 21 Chibok girls need total deliverance and proper engagement by the government.
Okay, those are the tweets that we are taking in the meantime. We'll come back to some of your tweets in the remainder of the part of the discussion. Just to return to our Lagos Network studios, Captain Aliu, now let's deal with some of the psychological aspects of what's unfolding. That's to say the release. The girls have been in captivity for as long as the Nigerian Civil War lasted, which is 30 months, 67 to 1970. From your perspective, what needs to be done with regard to the girls who've just been released, as well as other psychological operations in the area that had been ravaged by Boko Haram, especially where these girls were picked up, namely Chibok?
2 words to respond to your question is restorative justice. And what is restorative justice? Restorative justice is actually assisting, enabling, helping victims of crimes, regardless form, particularly here, terrorism, to recover as much as we can help them. And in this particular realm of the situation, that is victims of terrorism, we have primary, we have secondary, and we also have what you call vicarious victims. The ones we are talking about today are primary victims, 21 girls who have been out there traumatized for, just as you said, as long as the Civil War lasted or even more. And there will be immediate, medium, and long-term measures that will be taken so that these girls can fit back into their way of life before they were taken away. We may not get them perfectly there, but we'll get as close as possible as we can. And to explain this, I will want to lean heavily on what Dr. Chia from Makurdi said. For starters, the psychology of it all entails certain aspects of a process we cannot afford to overlook, meaning we need specialists, lead resource persons to handle each stage. The first stage is Medicare. Immediately these girls were released, they have to go through some kind of medical regimen. That is obvious. We know what they have been exposed to. After Medicare, we are going to do some psychological first aid to balance them out. And immediately after that psychological first aid, we are going to go problem. Glean off useful information. I am particularly excited about this process as a security and intelligence aficionado. At the end of it all, the last of the stage is where we now convert these girls to assets. Assets for the fight against terrorism, assets for law enforcement, assets for non-governmental organizations in the war against terrorism. Their being assets will ever remain a function of the successes of the process I have spoken about. And in that case, we're going to be looking at a very more advanced stage, the offender victim mediation process, where de-radicalized and converted terrorists can be brought together with victims of terrorist acts, and we bring them together psychologically, mentally, and they form a leveraged team of ambassadors, if you like, of the fight against terrorism. So here lies a yearning, gaping window again of opportunity for us to even prepare the prototype of what will happen to the balance of 197 as they come in.
Okay, Captain Umar Ali, thank you very much. That brings us to Honorable Velita Bashir. Now, that is a window, like he has pointed out, and as a representative of the people whose constituency have been ravaged in so many ways. Like we said, Chibok has been in the global lights for all the reasons that you could imagine, from the wonderful to the worst. Now, how is your constituency taking in all of this, and what are you set to do to actually help? Yes, some girls actually escaped those times even before the release of these ones. What had happened to them, and how prepared is the community ready to actually take in all the girls that are yet to be released and bringing them back to that educational platform where they were snatched from in the first instance?
Yes, thank you very much. What we are doing as stakeholders, I think the bulk lies now on we, the stakeholders from that area. We need to work very hard on the parents of these adopted children, and we need to work very hard on our girls. Just like the Captain Aliyu said, a lot needs to be done on these girls to bring them back to where they were, so that they could see that all hopes are not lost. They can now pick up their life and start all over again. Like the saying, the popular saying goes that every disappointment is a blessing. We will work on these girls so that they can pick up their lives and start again, and with take the advantage of the government's intervention now that they have become more or less properties of the federal government. And I assure you and tell Nigerians that these girls are in very, very good hands. They are being taken care of very well, and government is on top of the situation to make sure that they are being rehabilitated in all ramifications. And as for the parents, the Chibok people are enlightened people. They are people that they are flexible people. They are people that listen to advice. We will sit down with them and encourage them to encourage their girls to take the advantage of the government's intervention to continue their education. That is what I can say for now.
Okay. Well, Honorable Velita Bashir, thanks a lot. Let's go back to Makurdi Network Center, Dr. Perpetua Chair. Dr. Perpetua Chair, we'll listen to the points that you articulated, as well as a moment earlier by Captain Aliyu. I would like you to try to relate this to our experience as a people, as a country. I mean, virtually everywhere you go in the country, you'll find that we have very clumsy social welfare schemes. Is it possible to erect all these recommendations and suggestions on our lived experience, that namely we seem not to care about persons who are vulnerable?
Yes. We need to improve our social support system in the country in order to take care of people who are vulnerable, people who have gone through traumatic experiences. So we need to do that in order, because studies have shown that social support is a very, very good variable in the treatment or in having to manage people that have gone through traumatic experiences. So we need to do that, encourage our social support system, improve it, so that because the family, that is the social support involves the family and the society. So we need to encourage them, educate them, so that they will come to understand the need for their support towards people who are vulnerable. That is women and children, like in this case, the Chibok, these young girls. So they need a lot of support and care, because with that, it will really help in the treatment of such situations.
Dr. Perpetua Chair, speaking to us from our Makurdi Network Center, head of Department of Clinical Psychology at the Federal Medical Center, also there in the Benue State Capital. We'd like to thank you for your perspective on our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much, Kingsley.
Now let's return to our Abuja studios. Mr. Yaga Yarakawa, Chairman of Chibok Local Government, is still with us. Mr. Yarakawa, you've listened to the views expressed by the other guests. Now, let's ask this question. Does Chibok, as a community, recognize that it is now on the global agenda, on the global map? And how prepared is it to rehabilitate the girls who've just been freed, as well as, of course, to manage its own new profile of being on the global agenda?
Thank you very much. We are very much aware that Chibok is one of the local governments that has attracted global attention. And we as community also recognize that we are now in the eyes of the world. With the abduction of our daughters, we are optimistic that a lot of things will be said about Chibok community. And a lot of people will visit Chibok community to see the place that these daughters are abducted. And we as community are prepared at any moment to receive the world visitors to our local government area. Now, these daughters, as they were abducted, they are our daughters. In whatsoever condition, we are prepared to see that with the assistance of the federal government under President Mohamed Buhari and the state governor, Alhaji Kashim Shetima, and with our representatives, both in the Senate, House of Reps, and House of Assembly, we are prepared at any moment to see that the rehabilitation of these daughters are the paramount attention of the community and the government at all levels. So when we were called by the presidency through the Minister for Women Affairs to come with the parents of these daughters, we came together. We integrated them, they reunited. These girls, if you see them, you will not know that these are the girls that spent up to 2.5 years in captivity. They all went out abruptly. That Sunday service that was organized for them was disrupted. Everybody ran and jumped to her parents. Both the mother and the father were here. Yesterday we were together with them. Our representatives who came from abroad visited us, and these girls are ready now. You cannot know, they are very resilient, they are very strong. If you see them, you will know that these girls have courage. After staying from the period that they were released, some stayed up to 40 days without eating, yet they were very strong to welcome their parents. So from all indications, these daughters, they can be rehabilitated, they can be taken care of through the government We have discussed with the Minister of Women Affairs yesterday that these daughters are going to be taken care of. As it has been said, now they are in the hospital undergoing medical treatment. After that one, a psychological treatment will be done on them so that they will get stabilized. When they are stabilized, they will be taken care into another stage of rehabilitation, which we are sure the government is ready to do it. And the top government functionaries called the parents and told them everything, that with their agreement and support, the federal government is ready to do everything to these girls, including their education.
All right, Mr. Yarakawa, Chairman, Chibok Local Government Area, I would like to thank you for your contributions to our discussion this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and then very quickly, we'll return to Captain Aliu Umar at our Lagos Network Center to get your closing thoughts on all of this. Well, there's still incidents of bomb explosions in and around Maiduguri and elsewhere, but the happy news is the release of the 22 girls and ongoing negotiations for the release of additional girls, and hopefully 197. In your opinion, what is it that we need to scale up right now so that at the end of the day, we will have a more peaceable environment in the Northeast?
Talking about the Northeast, what we need to do actually is follow up. We need to follow up on the successes that have been achieved. There must be a working brief as we return the communities to what you call constituted civil authority. The road safety must have a post-terrorism brief. We have taken the terrorists out, or rather the military has taken the terrorists out. They have no longer playing road safety, police, prisons, immigration roles. What should these agencies look out for? If we take over these communities, hand them over to constituted civil authorities, and those loopholes they exploited to start ab initio still exist, then you're going to see the bombing start again, and we're going to be going around a vicious circle where we take and lose and take again. So each of these law enforcement agencies, luckily I met some of their chieftains while I was there in March this year, should be able to have what you can call a working plan, a brief of what their roles should be like now that terrorism has been degraded significantly and is intended to keep it that way. The army will not be there all the time to do it. And coming to our girls, I want to encourage all stakeholders, bring back our girls, NGOs, military, civil, law enforcement, intelligence and security agencies to see the presence of these girls in our fold as an opportunity to become stronger, wiser. They must forge ranks. There's not going to be any antagonisms about who has the right of access to them or not. There's going to be actually what I want to call a synergy and seamless approach to information that is gleaned off these girls. I'm looking to see a lot of grounds, new grounds being broken. Don't forget, this is the first time we're actually getting victims of terrorism back and trying to rehabilitate them. So we need to make a statement here. Thank you.
All right. Captain Aliu Omar Babangida, thank you very much. Head Security Resources and Solutions Consult Lead, and also a member of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on the planned handing over of areas liberated from Boko Haram. Thank you very much. You joined us from our Lagos studio.
Thank you.
Yes, on the last stretch.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well,
Okay,
unfortunately, we're pressed for time now. We understand that we have some messages. Without those messages, we'll be broke. We don't want to be broke. So we'd like to thank the Director General of NOAA, Dr. Abari, for your contributions to our conversation this morning.
Thank you.
And also we'd like to appreciate Honorable Asabe Vidita Bashir. Thanks for your insights.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. So that does it for our discussion segment. We'll take a short break now.
Who are you, and what is your predicament?
Please, I'm looking for Candy, who is living here.
in this compound?
Oh no, this is a premises. The compound is an amalgam of chemicals, and there is no candy living in this premises.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Funky Malam, Bimbo Akintola, Ime Bishop, Yomi Fash Lanso, MC for God.
Who was you? What was you found?
Auntie, I look at you. I going to look for my sister. I know you are poor.
Yeah. And he was found in the place. Call me. Okay?
Say somebody.
She's definitely not my sister.
Shut up!
Professor John Bull, fasten your seatbelts this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times. It's absolutely bombastic.
Over and out. The largest data network, Glow, Grandmasters of Data.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors for a shining, clean, and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
We intend to radically change Newman Street. My company has a track record of converting slums into new cities. Many years of experience has taught us to fish out allies within the communities we want to transform.
Don't listen to your husband. Listen to me. Give me a boy. And the two of you may never even have to work again.
Sharp guy, how are you? What's your name? Akpos. America. Oh, Akpos, America.
Yeah, wow, love it too.
Wonderful wonder. Wonderful wonder.
Wonderful.
In life, there are many distractions, but the future is always created by those who can focus on the goal. Techno Phantom 6 with dual back camera and adjustable focusing technology. Never say it, show it.
Yeah, before we go, let's have a quick check on the weather outlook for the rest of the day.
And a warm welcome to the weather forecast. Sunshine has continued to increase over the extreme northern part of the country, just as the moisture content in the atmosphere over there continues to decrease. Over the central states and the inland of the south, this is the season where orography plays an important role. Now on to the forecast. We expect few clouds and sunshine over the extreme northern part of the country, with hazy conditions affecting from Katsina down to the northeastern part of the country. Partly cloudy condition is expected over Bauchi, Gombe towards Yewa, while cloudiness is expected from the central cities down to the coast, with possibility of showers over the high grounds of both the inland of the south and the central states, while rains are expected along the coast. Now into the afternoon hours, we expect thunderstorms to affect the central state down to the coast, while sunshine is still expected over the extreme northern part of the country with clear skies at night. That's it on the weather. Stay tuned for the temperature forecast.
Well, expect the rains again in Abuja and for other places that you have seen. Thank you for watching Good Morning Nigeria for today. The program returns tomorrow, 7 a.m. on the dots. My name is Bless Nabu. I wish you a very pleasant day ahead.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Blessing in thanking you for starting your day with us. As always, you have a nice day.